Scherri-Lee Biggs was born in South Africa and emigrated to Perth at the age of 8. She studied dance and ballet before having a very successful career in modelling and then transitioning over the last 7 years into media with 9 News here in Perth. We caught up and had a chat with Pav. Sherry, welcome.
Hey Pav, how's it going? Nice to have a bit of sunshine at the moment.
Know, it's been cold recently, hasn't it? Sherry, it's sort of about mid-morning on a weekday, and your day is pretty hectic because you're sort of pulled from pillar to post before delivering the weather on a nightly basis. What does a normal day look like?
Well, I think that's a good question, and you see me during my my normal day, but I think a lot of people do think that, they probably think the same as well, that we just roll in and, it's all written for us and it's all done and we just go on camera at, 5, 6 o'clock. But it's a pretty full day, so I do get in mid-morning and a lot of emails, more than you would like to think. But because I produce my own segments as well, so I organise locations, we try and get out in the community as much as possible. So that's where I come in producing that as well. But I do all research and writing as well, and then of course an hour and a half of hair and makeup every day, and we're on location. So a couple of radio crosses, and then I get out and about, and we've got 2 hours of news. So my day goes pretty quickly, especially I think the last half or 3/4 of it gets pretty rushed.
No doubt. An hour and a half of hair and makeup.
Yeah.
Now, some people probably think, oh, that's awesome, like how good's that, I'm getting pampered for, but it does eat into your day and you have to be very scheduled or planned either side of that, don't you?
Everything's to the minute in news. Like, we literally have a slot where every single thing is done, and you've got to get it done at that time, or otherwise it kind of shifts all the rest of your day around. But a lot of people think that getting your hair and makeup done daily is super glamorous, but after 7 years it gets a bit much. But it's a good thing we get along with the makeup artists, and you've just got time management. It's a huge part of my day.
Very important as well. And I know you think that I hug a lot of the limelight when I hop into that makeup chair. So I know Tomo does.
We've had a bit of a row about it before.
Tell us about coming here to Perth. You were 8 and emigrating to a different country from South Africa. What was that like, and what was your experience growing up?
Well, so my family came over here in '98, and you can do the math there, but it was just my family, so it was a huge change. We didn't have any extended family here or family friends that we were close to, so we basically started over again. For my parents, though, coming over here, that was a new start for them, and we weren't going to look back. It is hard when you don't have that support network, and there's probably quite tempting as well, starting a new business again to just return home to that comfort. But my family's, I guess you could say, motto was not looking back, and we haven't, and we've never regretted it, and we love our life here in Australia, and it's been a great place for opportunities for 3 young girls, and we're all together and safe, so we're very happy here.
Probably no safer place than Perth over the last 18 months as well to be. Has it kind of shaped your spirit or your the way that you live a life, given the fact that you've come here and you've got lots of opportunity, but does it dictate how you go about your daily business as well?
That's a very interesting question, Pav. I guess, I definitely honour my roots as a South African. I'll never let that go. I love that. But I think life in Australia is very different over here. So it's certainly those freedoms as well, to be able to move around and not worry about your safety necessarily. I think that was pretty big for us. I remember when we first moved here, my parents were so impressed that you could go outdoors and ride your bike around, that I'm pretty sure we rode the entirety of Perth. And so I think they were very impressed with the freedoms of it, and that's shaped how I live my life.
Riding around Perth, obviously it's a great lifestyle, and it might have kept you fit and healthy, because you were identified pretty young as a model and someone who potentially had a great path through that area and industry. Tell us about being identified at 16 as a model and being thrust into that at such a young age.
Yeah, it is tough. Like, as you say, I was 16 and I actually moved out of home after I finished year 12, I moved to Sydney as a 17-year-old, and that was my first time out of home into the big lights into the modelling industry over there, and it was pretty tough at times. I think to suddenly be considered as a product rather than a person in a very, it's a very vulnerable age as well. I think, you're quite protected and sheltered in your school life, and you have a lot of support and friend network and or friendship network. But I think once you're suddenly considered a product in a very adult world. So, your body image is, you start questioning that, and you've got all these people that are putting these labels on you, and you're either hired or fired based on what you look like. So I think that was very testing for me, but I guess it taught me a lot as well. And I became a very independent young woman, and I think that led into my 20s as well, which was a very full decade.
We share that in common, the fact that I got drafted from one side of the country at 17, straight out of school, here to Western Australia, and I guess we were babies. So we share that, but you're right, it does make you grow up pretty quickly. Going back to some of the body image stuff and some of the labels, not necessarily the clothing labels, but the labels that you're tagged with, how hard is that?
Super hard. I think it was, it is that really vulnerable time, and it's a time where you should be learning about yourself and building that confidence, but then to have it kind of trashed, for lack of a better word. But it does teach you how to kind of separate that that physical part of yourself and learning to love yourself from the inside out first, and I think, there definitely were times where I hated my body, and that became a big issue for me. And I'd say I went through disordered eating for some time, and but it's nice to kind of, I guess, look back now, and luckily I had the strength and support of family members and, a good female support network as well, which is something that I'm very passionate about. But to kind of look back and see myself having come full circle on that, I mean, I'm a woman, I still have my body issues, but learning to love where you're at is something quite special, I think.
How do you find that? How do you learn them?
I think you've just got to be happy with where you're at that time, and it is a lot of, it's a consistent mental battle, it's you've got to put in the work. I think you've got to look at that negative self-talk, I think, is the biggest part of it. I think we quite quickly focus on image, and you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you look at your face and, oh God, I've got a pimple. Instead of looking at a pimple, why don't you look at, that you're looking really fresh today, or, those sorts of things. But I think, you've got to start focusing on, and I think it's really hard for girls these days as well, or just young kids these days, is we've got social media that's absolutely plaguing our lives just with these images of body image and, and what we're supposed to look like. So I feel really bad for kids these days, because I think it is going to be quite a battle to separate that. And also just something that works for me as well is just focusing on things that are completely not tied to your image. So, hobbies and exercise and, just those sorts of things that you build on, education.
Other things that round out your personality.
Exactly, distract you.
No, and I that resonates really strongly with me, because if someone, when I first got to Perth and, you're out for dinner or out for drinks or whatever, and someone asked me, what do I do? My default answer was always, I go to uni. Because I wanted to disassociate not only myself and my identity from being an AFL player, but I also wanted the person, because when you say I'm a model or when you say I'm an AFL player, people's kind of perception of you or their line of questioning changes
totally
dramatically after
100%.
that.
And that's something I definitely found transitioning into media as well, coming out of, I did Miss Universe, and I think that comes with some big labels that aren't necessarily true. So
tell us what those labels are.
Well, I just think that is a huge focus on body image, and a lot of the time, I think a lot of the things that I get asked about, because we went to Miss Universe in Brazil, was, you know, what were the girls like? Was it catty? Was it...
So was it? Tell us.
No, it was completely the opposite. It was completely the opposite. So I think the whole program was quite hard because it was a very busy schedule, and they were kind of testing you. But the girls were fantastic. It almost felt like it was this rare opportunity where, you know, we were stuck in a hotel for a month and we'd all be sitting in a room together and chatting about, you know, when was our first kiss? What do you study? What do you do for work? And that sort of, and it was really lovely to see this cross section
Are you still
of
friends
the world.
with a lot of those people?
Yeah, I mean, it was 10 years ago now, so I do every now and then keep in contact with a couple of them. But it was a very intense month, so I think you built these very intense friendships. But yeah, I keep tabs on a few of them. And
sounds like the Olympics are on at the moment. Sounds like you're almost in quarantine.
It basically, and it
Olympic
was.
Village.
I mean, yeah. But you know, there were girls that were working for the army. There were girls that were studying to be doctors. There were all sorts of, and I just found it incredibly interesting, and how many things that we found very similar between us, even though we come from incredibly different backgrounds, and then the things that were different. You know, I think it was a really beautiful time.
And you finished in the top 10?
I did.
What's the process like? Like, how challenging is it? Or how much
It
fun?
was,
It sounds like fun. But...
Yeah. To be honest, it wasn't. It was quite grueling. So it's a whole month of us being there, and it's got a lot to do with sponsors, and you know, you do different shoots, and it's a lot of shoots. Actually, I'm trying to think now.
Just a lot of shoots.
It's just a whole month went really quickly. It all
Talking
happened.
about first kisses and shoots.
And shoots. No, it was just like a lot of, you know, you had to interact with the clients as well, and then you'd film TVCs and shoot for a hair product, and then, you know, you'd go and visit a landmark, but it would literally be for 10 minutes and it was all photos and it was over. But then the actual competition was over 3 days, I think, and there were just different heats of the swimsuit, question, and your
What was
costume.
your strength? Like going in, if you said, okay, this is my number one strength, I'm going to be really good at this. What did you want to? Can you remember?
I think I'm pretty good at the question and answer situation, but but that was another thing where you talk about labels, you know, and we see those like little clips or footage of girls that are stumbling and they can't. Some of these girls, English was their second language, you know, and like how many people can say that? And you're literally sitting there, millions of people tuning in on TV. Now, as a 21-year-old, like just millions of people are tuning in, and you have no idea what you're about to be asked. Could be anything from a political question to values to, you know, one of mine was, who is the most powerful person in the world? Like, just...
What was your answer?
I said that the power was in people as a whole.
Very impressive. No wonder you got the top 10. Did you do, can you speak Afrikaans?
No, so my mum's Afrikaans, but I, because I left when I was in year 2, I started learning Zulu at school.
That would have been cool if you were able to like almost oscillate between English, Zulu, and Afrikaans.
Can you imagine?
You would have nailed it.
No, but so half my family can speak Afrikaans, but yeah, I'm on at her about teaching me because it's a very funny language. Have you heard it?
Yeah,
you've heard my mum.
I know your mum. Your mum works in the 9 department, so yeah, I've heard it's almost soothing. In some ways. But also quite intense.
It's comical. But she sometimes she forgets I don't speak Afrikaans, and when she wants to say, you know, when you're in public and you want to say something, then she'll just turn to me and start speaking in Afrikaans.
So you understand it or not?
I can follow a conversation, but I would never be able to, and I can swear it, but that's...
Give us a
No.
Transitioning into the media, so you started in Melbourne with 7 and did some interesting things there, and then in 2014 you became the weekly weather reporter for Channel 9 here. Was it always something that you had an interest in, the media?
Definitely. So I was studying journalism. Miss Universe got in the way of that. Always intended on going back, but TV just kind of took off, and I was literally signing up to go back, and I missed enrolment date because in between studying I would go travelling for modelling. So I lived in London, Germany, Sydney and Melbourne in between, and then I just forgot to sign up on time, and that's when I did Miss Universe, and it all kind of just took off, and sometimes that's the way things roll. So I was studying journalism, so it was always I was always interested in it, but I didn't know exactly which way that I wanted to, where in TV I wanted to land. So I started in lifestyle TV in Melbourne. I did travel shows, did a lot of colour coverage for the Australian Open,
and you love that stuff, right?
Loved that. That was so much fun, but it was inconsistent. And oddly enough, at school, geography was my top Year 12 subject, which was a lot of weather-based stuff. And I've always been fascinated by weather. So when it came up, it was definitely something. I think a lot of people think I'm a meteorologist as well. Definitely not. It is so hard to become a meteorologist. Hats off to them. They do a fantastic job. But it's a research and writing role. So
synoptic charts and weather patterns, you kind of get it.
Oh yeah, it's all patterns. So after 7 years, you have a fair idea of how things work. But I would never, ever call myself a meteorologist. They do a very big job.
7 years in the role.
Yeah.
What have you learned? I mean, I'm a few years into my role presenting sport, both with Fox and Nine, but I've found it somewhat challenging, very scripted to the minute you talk about. When you go from colour pieces where you can kind of ad lib and have a bit of fun to very scripted, just I need to read the auto cue, or I know I've got someone counting my ear that I've got 10 seconds to finish something.
It's full on, isn't it? The counting in the ear.
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, I'm a guy, I can't do two things at once at the best of times, let alone when someone's trying to talk to me. What have you learned through that process?
I think for me, because I am on location a lot of the time and things often go wrong or they're not as we planned it, and because news is so fast, it's just to think on your feet and to be able to adapt very quickly and pivot. I think that's the word of 2021, isn't it? Pivot. So I think that's something that I learned, and when I went into Apprentice, that was something that, a skill that I thought really helped me in my time there.
Yeah.
So just thinking on your feet, making the best of a bad situation, and just having a bit of fun with it as well, because at the end of the day, it's today's fish paper. Yesterday's news, today's fish
exactly
paper.
Right. Something that I've always been interested in is, like, and now that I see it, when you're sort of using your hands to talk to a screen behind you but reading somewhere else.
Yeah.
How much, does that take
It's like
practice?
a dance. That's where my dance came
there
in.
you go.
And I've got to walk backwards and all this jazz. Yeah, it can. And then they switch, for, I think it was 6 years, I turned left and looked at a screen. And then they gave me a new screen.
Like you can't turn right.
I can't turn right. So I had to learn all over again. But yeah, it can be pretty full on. You get quite good at reading, picking up different spots in a script, and sometimes just stuffing up as well. But that's something that I always tell little kids as well. Like when I'm out and about, they always ask, what do you do? Do you ever stuff up? But
all the time.
I'm like every day.
I know I do.
Small child. No, but I think the best thing, one thing that I learned pretty quickly is that you can't focus on your mistake as you've made it, because then it's just the next mistake, because your mind's still elsewhere. So you just got to forgive yourself, laugh it off, and move on to the next thing pretty quickly.
You've worked with a number of brands through your career, whether it was as a model or now as a media talent. When you're partnering with a brand, what do you look for? What are the things that you go, I want to partner with that brand versus another one?
I think it's going to be something that I would use in my life, or that I would, that suits my personal brand. And that's something as well, when you do work in the industry from a young age, you're still figuring yourself out. So you're also figuring out your brand, which is a strange thing. But I think that's the biggest part of it for me, is that this has to be something that I would use in my everyday life, or that suits my personal brand. And I think in that way as well, that's the best way that you can both value add. I don't want to be a part of a company that I don't necessarily believe in, or I'm not very good at lying as well. So
give us some examples, like Nike, Myer. What else? Suzuki?
Yeah, Suzuki I was with Suzuki for about 6 years, but that suited a demographic that I was that I think my personal brand connected to as well. And they were just fun. They were all about fun as well. And me coming from a lifestyle TV background, that's what I was about, and getting outdoors and adventuring. They brought in their four-wheel drive, the Jimny. They brought that back in a couple of years back, and I would take that forward driving, and I got to do all these fun things with them. It was a really easy brand to create content for because it suited me, and it was something that I would naturally have in my life.
And what about with the role at Nine, the crossover between Nine partners and getting you to do lots of stuff? How do you kind of manage that? Because it feels as though sometimes there's obligations, but also there's a feeling of, well, actually, no, that's a good brand to be associated with. How do you kind of pick and choose on those things?
You'll have to ask my boss that. No, so I don't put things forward unless I think that it would suit Nine as well. And for us, it also helps us get out there, and it's if our audience recognises us being connected to a brand that suits our audience as well, then that certainly plays into it. So I go in with a pitch, don't you worry.
I can see that. I can see that. Given the fact that you answer questions on a global scale, I'm sure you could do it in our office. Celebrity Apprentice.
Yes.
Fun?
So much fun. So much fun. Hectic, but so much fun. It was like, when do you get an experience like that? It really tested your skill set and showed you skills that you never knew you had as well.
So what were they? What were the things you learned? What skills did you go, I didn't know I had that in me?
I guess putting together things so quickly as well. The creative aspect. I made a metal lamp out of an exhaust pipe, and I've actually thought about maybe getting into metal work now. Like, I think it's.
I would like to see that. That would be nice.
I reckon that'd be pretty good. I think it's just the array of things that you take part in, and that probably the boardroom. I always knew I'd be all right because obviously in workplaces there are conflicts sometimes, or
we clash all the time.
All the time. Like, I don't even know how we're sitting here today. But yeah, the boardroom was a real place where I kind of, I guess, saw how strong I could be when I'm backed into a corner.
So was it, this is interesting, was it against Sugar, or like giving him the answers, or was it mainly in between your teams?
There was, when I left, actually, I was having full rows with Janine. Janine.
I remember it, yeah.
Boost Janine. So I think what I found, it was more so with the other contestants. So, but which was quite hard because you are mates along the show. You are building relationships, and you would have worked on a project as a team, as we were. You know what teamwork is like. And it, you put your all into it. You've helped raise money for your friend's team or whatever it might have been, and then someone just throws a punch and all gloves are up.
And this is really interesting because maybe the fact that you moved away from home at such a young age, became really independent, strong, that you had those things inside you, and it's when you're thrust into an environment or a situation that
I'm ready to
I'm going to bring those things out again.
And
I've whether it's business or media, I've found being a captain, but also being involved in the team for so long, you're all competitive because you're all sort of fighting for
positions,
but you have to be collaborative to achieve a common goal. So
you do well on Celebrity Apprentice. Are you
no
going to go on the next?
No pitch. Charity. So you represented your charity well, and I'm keen to sort of find out more about why. But you've been involved in a whole bunch of charity work as well.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're passionate about.
So Dress for Success is the charity that I chose to represent on Celebrity Apprentice, and this one I'm super passionate about. It helps women get back into the workforce after, these could be women that are coming from out of domestic violence, that are living in a refuge home. They could be refugees. It's all sorts of women coming from all sorts of walks in life, and it's about preparing them for to get back into the workforce. So sharpening up interview skills, resume skills, even down to finding them an outfit and giving them makeup lessons, and it's phenomenal.
So
the work
good,
that they do is so great because there's one thing to kind of help women get away from these situations, but to help them gain their independence again is so important. And so for me, I come from a house of 4 very strong females. I went to an all-girls school, took part in dance, in modelling, you know, so I've always been surrounded by incredible women and had that great support. And there has been times, you know, when I came out of Miss Australia where I'd lost a lot of confidence. I think I was just exhausted, and you know, you had to break into the media and try and forge your career, but you've got all this competition out there, so it was a very different world for me. But to have that support of the strong women around me is what propelled me into where into doing the things that I'm doing now. So for me, that's where I have a strong passion in this charity, and to give that person, just even if it is those few steps of confidence into gaining their independence, it's
a great charity. Sounds like it's doing wonderful things. Role models. Who are your role models?
Ooh, tough. I don't know if I've ever really had. I like taking different things from different people, but I wouldn't say that I've had. Like 1 or 2 specific people, but and it's not necessarily all women as well. I think I like observing people, and I like looking at their different aspects of their personalities and their work ethics and things, and trying to include that if it's something that so to answer your question, is that bad that I don't have my role model's me?
I thought you might have said your mum, but I'm sure she understands.
She has been an integral part.
But no, that's really interesting. I think I'm similar, that you draw lots of different inspiration and things from lots of people that you observe in your life, and it could be any walk of life, your family, friends, work colleagues, whatever it may be.
Well, I just think we're all unique as well, so to model myself on one specific person, it just doesn't roll with me.
So how do you keep fit? How do you keep healthy? What's your routine?
It's up and down. You know me. I'm all or nothing. I'm either running half marathons or sitting on the couch. But no, I have. That's one thing I'm focusing on at the moment. Right. So is consistency. So I have a PT once a week, but I love running. That's always been something that
Although
helps.
You keep dodging team runs.
You keep asking me for a run.
Come on.
I'm not fit yet. I need to get fit to come for a run with you. But no, running has always been a big part of my mental space as well. And I think the older I'm getting, the more I realise that that's the bigger benefit to exercise than the physical. But and Pilates has always been a strong one as well from my dance background. Yeah. But I kind of, at the moment, I really want to start I'm trying to get into more hobbies. So my next one that I'm taking on is metalwork, archery. I'm going to start playing.
Yeah, playing.
Doing archery.
Yeah.
Playing.
I don't know. I'm not sure
if
what
I get competitive, I'll be playing.
For archery.
Doing archery.
Where do you do or
There's
play
a few different archery spots, but oddly enough, a lot of them are in a park, which worries me.
I'm not going anywhere near the park that you're starting at your archery journey.
Stay away from Lake
Munga. You've been in the media for 7 years. Do you think about what's next, or do you just sort of, it sounds like you kind of had a plan and that shifted and you're on this journey. What's next for Scherri-Lee Biggs?
I think I'll always be in media. It's interesting when you've been doing something for 7 years, you do kind of stop and think, is this what I'm going to keep doing for the next 7? Or I love working with Nine. You know how beautiful
it's a great place to work.
Yeah. So for me, I'm happy with where I'm at right now. I think probably what I would like to do is add a few more strings to my bow. I would love to get into radio again and kind of, I guess, grow my brand a little bit. So that's probably where I'm at. I'm very comfortable in my role at Channel 9 and love it. So just more, please.
More opportunities, there you go.
Yeah.
Been great having a chat with you. Thank you for your time. It's been a beautiful day, and it is really nice to get to know you a little more. I know we know each other pretty well, but for some of the people listening in or watching, I think it's a really interesting insight into what it takes to be successful, both in modelling and TV, but in life, about your journey, because it's a fascinating one. It's not a straightforward path towards media. And it's been really interesting to learn a bit more about you. So thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. We better get back to the office.
We better, that's right.